Hi, I'm Ryan Hennesy, and this is your Rooted Reflection for Wednesday, March 31st. We're on page 35 and 36 in the devotional here, and I'm going to read this prayer if you would like to read along. The wilderness is a place where we are brave. First, we have to name it: the heartbreak, the addiction, the shame, the grief. Whatever your wilderness is, first, we have to name it. And once we've said those words out loud, we let that truth hang in the air. And we let ourselves feel what we feel. For in this moment, we are close to the surface. And after a few deep breaths, we begin the removing. Piece by piece, we take our armor off. For truth-telling days are soft skin kind of days. And once we are armor-free, hearts on our sleeves and tears in our throats, we stand toe to toe with the very hurt that wrecked us, and we don't try to swallow that pain away. And there, in all our beautiful, God-given honesty, we say to that monster, I have love on my side, and her name is God. And no wilderness can separate me from that North Star. And I believe it will be the bravest thing you ever do. And your knees might shake, and you might lose your way. But our God is a God of second chances. So take my hand. You are close to the surface. Let's be brave together. So, when I was preparing this, I was just thinking about bravery and what bravery means. And I think that a lot of us, especially those of us like myself with young children, have a concept of what bravery is based on some of the stories that we are exposed to or that we're reading. Right now, we're doing our read aloud with Maddie, and we're reading the story of Redwall. And if you don't know what that is, it's a story about a mouse who's a monk in an abbey who lives with other mice and other woodland creatures, and they're attacked by this terrible rat named Clooney the Scourge, and he lays siege to their abbey, and they have to come up with different ways to defend what's theirs, and the main character, Matthias, goes on all these adventures looking for this legendary sword that used to belong to a hero named Martin the Warrior who founded the abbey. And the story goes on, and Matthias does his thing, and he has to fight this poisonous snake, and he has to fight Clooney one-on-one combat in the battles, and those are the kinds of stories that the word bravery often conjures up. But I think that in real life, bravery often takes a different kind of appearance. I think this poem does a really good job of evoking some of the imagery and some of the feelings around what it means to be brave in our day-to-day lives. Because chances are we're not going to be fighting poisonous snakes that are 10 times our size, or beating away an army full of rats that are trying to take over our home. So being brave for you and me sometimes looks a little bit different. And I was thinking about, this story that me and my wife Julia are reading with our daughter, that sometimes being a parent requires a lot of bravery. And sometimes being a spouse or a partner requires a lot of bravery. Because in order to do those things well, you really have to be honest. And sometimes being honest hurts other people. You have to be willing to do the right thing, even though the consequences might not be pleasant. And to me, that's that's really what bravery is all about. Even in the situations that we think of when we think about bravery, some of the most iconic moments in literature or movies that really like everyone can point to and say, "Oh, that was a great example of bravery." It's often people who know they have to do something that's going to cost them, and they do it anyway. I think of Gandalf down in the mines of Moria when he has to tell the Balrog that the Balrog shall not pass while his friends escape. And it could have cost him his life, and in many ways it did, because when he comes back into the story, spoiler alert, he is completely changed. I think about moments in my own life when we decided to move up here to Maryland as a family. It was in part because we had to get away from a toxic situation. So in that instance, bravery looked a lot like running away. Sometimes it's hard to really know what bravery is unless you can really understand what's going on inside another person. So I think for us, really what we ought to be doing if we're trying to be brave is take a lead from this poem and really focus on being honest with ourselves, and being honest with those that are close to us, and being honest with God. And a lot of times that's really hard and it's really scary. But when you are able to be honest with yourself, you're really able to get past some things that are holding you back. And that growth can be hard. And the consequence of being honest with yourself means you have to change some things. That's a tricky process. But it's also really brave. And if you can be honest with the people around you, it can really sting. You have to tell people sometimes that the things that they're doing are hurting you, or you have to call out bad behaviors. Maybe someone who's close to you is hurting someone else, and you have to step in, because that's the brave and honest and courageous and loving thing to do. And being honest with God can be the most difficult sometimes. It's a scary, hard thing to stand before God and say, the things that are really in your heart. Sometimes I don't like the things that God is doing. Sometimes I don't like the things that God is asking me to do. It's hard to stand before God and say what's really in your heart. We have some good examples of that in the Bible. Some of the Psalms are really blunt with God. Job is another really good example. People who stand before God and really open up themselves and open up their hearts and are brave. It's so hard to do, and it's so scary, but it's so important.